Throughout history, experts in every field have stumbled across mysteries that cannot and likely will not ever be truly explained. Despite these cases having abundant theories both related to the supernatural and logical science, solid answers have yet to be confirmed. These 5 cases have been pondered on for so long now that they're deemed unsolvable. Number 5. Circleville, Ohio was a small, quaint city with just over 13,000 residents when it became the center of a baffling and even unsettling mystery. The year was 1876, when citizens began receiving mysterious letters from an unknown writer. From the average housewife to the mayor, anyone and everyone stumbled across at least one letter addressed to their home. These weren't friendly letters of well wishes from relatives from far away, either. They've been described as threatening, vindictive, vile, and offensive, just to name a few. Aside from being flat out rude, the letters also seemed to have an intended goal, which was to stir up drama in the community. One woman, a city bus driver, received a letter that implied she was having a romantic affair. Although she claimed the story to be false, it did stir up her marriage and attracted negative attention to her personal life. One day, the driver's husband answered a home phone call, in which he spoke to a man claiming to be the source of the letters. The husband set out with intentions of seeking revenge, but was found on the side of the road later that day. The exact events that unfolded are still unknown. Later on that day, before she got the news, the bus driver noticed signs posted along her route that poked fun at her, threatening her, and generally adding to the harassment she had already undergone. When she exited the bus to inspect one of the signs, she was faced with a grim discovery. A weapon had been set up as a trap to target her. It turns out that the item was registered under the former brother-in-law's name. He was later apprehended and sentenced to solitary confinement, even though he argued his innocence the entire way. The city of Circleville, which had been on the edge of their seats for the past several years, were relieved to know that the anonymous writer was finally facing the consequences of his actions. But sadly, the letters didn't stop or even slow down following the sentence. In solitary confinement, the suspect's letters, both outgoing and incoming, were monitored by guards and prison employees. This proved that this man couldn't have been the writer. After being denied parole, the suspect himself was sent a letter that taunted him. This is just one story of how the people's lives were impacted by the writer. The popular show Unsolved Mysteries was filming a segment about the letters, and the writer sent them a postcard that read, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. Do nothing to hurt Sheriff Radcliffe. If you come to Ohio, else sickos will pay. Sincerely, the Circleville writer." To this day, the writer's true identity remains unknown, and the drama, pain, and sadness evoked by the countless letters have left a scar on the residents involved. Number 4. At first glance, this unsolvable mystery may seem comedic, but it actually carries dark layers of concern, evil, and confusion. Known as the Dancing Plague, this phenomenon began in July of 1518 in Strasbourg, France. The strange behavior started with a single woman. Without a single note of music or the instruction of another person, she began dancing wildly in the streets. The styles of her movements changed frequently, and while she did sway through the streets, she didn't travel far from where she started. Passers-by and street workers didn't give the woman much concern or attention, as she appeared to be either drunk or lewd, innocently acting out in the street. When her performance carried on for more than 24 hours, she began to get more attention though, and residents worried about her mental stability and physical stamina. She carried on regardless and eventually was joined by others. She didn't stop, rest, or even pull back for 6 full days. 1 or 2 additional dancing women suddenly joined the performance without saying a word to explain their motives. By the time a week had passed, 34 additional dancers joined the scene, mostly females. Some reports state that after a month, as many as 400 citizens jumped into the party. They danced all day and all night without food, water, or sleep. It goes without saying that many of them reached a point in which their bodies couldn't take the stress any longer. Some passed out from exhaustion and others died from starvation. Many of them even suffered heart attacks and strokes. About 15 people were being carried off the streets, and some witness statements claim that at the plague's peak, for every person that dropped, 2 more people would take their place. This may all seem like a colorful wives' tale, but there are official news reports, medical documents, and other studies to support the story. At one point, city officials and doctors came together to devise a cure or treatment for the victims. They believed the dancing was caused by hot blood and organized 2 dance halls where the patients could remain day and night. They built stages and hired musicians for what wound up being an episode straight from the Twilight Zone. These efforts only made things worse, and the plague spread even faster. The number of performers became so high that the dance halls and streets completely lacked control or structure. Eventually, the plague faded out, and all that remains now are piles of paperwork documenting the strange disease. Modern-day theories include food poisoning, psychological trauma, mass hysteria, and a number of other diseases that could have resulted in uncontrollable muscle movements. However, the truth behind this may never be confirmed, and the illness has never returned in the modern day. Number 3. All over the world, people have spotted mysterious lights in the sky. From unexplainable UFOs to the extremely popular Hessdalen lights, humans are baffled by the strange presence of these sightings. In this case, we're discussing the Hornet Spooklight, also simply referred to as the Spooklight. This mystery occurs on the border of Missouri and Oklahoma, a short distance west from Hornet, Missouri. The area is known by locals as the Devil's Promenade, and despite the Hornet name, which suggests it's closer to Missouri, some reports have proven that it's most visible near Oklahoma. This is such a popular sighting for tourists and residents alike that there's luckily an abundance of descriptive information concerning the light. For example, some visitors have provided details to ensure that one's visit is worth the travel. For the most effective viewing experience, reports instruct that the viewer park on Oklahoma East 50 Road. The deserted road is about 4 miles south of the three-state junction of Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, according to Wikipedia's collected research. Instructions also insist that the viewer must sit in perfect silence, as some reports claim loud noises deter the light from visiting the area. It's commonly described as a ball shape, much like an orb of light. It's played tricks on some eyes, causing its appearance to look more like a lantern or flashlight hovering above the ground, as if being held by someone. Its color is usually an orange, yellow, or red tone in varying combinations. However, some viewers claim to have witnessed the color actually shift to a greenish glow or even a blue shade. The Spooklight has a rich and lengthy history behind it. Most reports started spreading in the area around the late 19th century. After these reports, elders insisted that the light was present in the 1830s along the Trail of Tears. Because of this, urban legends and scary stories attribute the light to the souls of 2 young Native Americans that lost their lives on the trail. Of course, there's no proof for this, but it's a theory that only continued to grow in popularity since the first documented publication of the Spooklight in 1936. In the 1940s, residents caused a stir when they shared complaints with city officials and scientists alike, insisting that more research be conducted on the light after they noticed it hovering in other locations, such as the woods and even on their own land. This caused the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to jump into action and finally address the issue. The research began in 1946, but unfortunately, no significant information was collected. Even the experts brushed the sightings off as a light of unknown origin. Beginning in the 1960s, though, the Spooklight region has become a tourist destination for visitors from all over the world. Today, there are endless theories that swim around on the web, and even in the news, but the truth and the purpose of the Spooklight remains a mystery. Number 2. Burger King foot lettuce isn't the weirdest thing to have been discovered at the fast food chain. Around 5 a.m. on the morning of August 31st, 2004, an adult male with no identity was found laying behind a building. The employee that found him later described that he was nude, sunburnt, covered in ant bites, and had 3 large dents in his head that seemed to be derived from blunt force injuries. However, he was very much alive and breathing. Emergency services arrived to the scene and rushed the unconscious man to a nearby hospital, where he was put on record as Burger King Doe. This is because they couldn't find a shred of evidence to identify him. Officers checked jails, hospitals, hotels, and shelters in the area, providing a photo of a man that was later claimed to be Benjamin Kyle. The search was fruitless, and the man's identity still remained a mystery. When he finally woke up in the hospital, he reported that he recalled his name being Benjamin, but he was unable to provide anything else. Some reports claim that when he looked in the mirror for the first time, he was shocked to realize that he was 20 years older than he thought he was. The search for this man's real identity included DNA databases, fingerprint comparisons, and even a call to the public. For the next several years, still unaware of his own background, Benjamin traveled between homeless shelters and rehab homes, often traveling from state to state on foot in search of his truth. In 2016, he apparently uncovered his identity, and while that detail was released to the public, very little information on his personal life was ever shared. That fact may make it seem like the mystery was solved, but to this day, there are countless questions concerning Burger King Doe. He still hasn't learned anything vital concerning the accident or why he was even in Georgia to begin with, since his home was apparently several states away. The depressions in his skull suggested that he was attacked, yet details of that event have yet to be uncovered. Furthermore, even law enforcement and medical officials are doubtful of his true identity and ponder why so many tests returned 0 results. Number 1. Foreign accent syndrome describes a rare medical phenomenon that commonly occurs after a head injury when the victim suddenly develops an accent. The first known case of FAS was documented in 1907, and since then only 100 people in history have been diagnosed with the strange side effect. It can happen to anyone, from anywhere. You may be more familiar about popular cases that involve English speakers picking up accents from Australia or the UK, but there are cases of the opposite. Patients are even able to perfectly pronounce words with an accent that they previously couldn't even pretend to say. Linguistic experts have found that most victims in these cases speak so fluently that it's difficult to separate them from natural-born speakers of said countries. Most cases have occurred after heart attacks, strokes, brain injuries, or even multiple sclerosis, either from brain damage or alterations caused by a lack of oxygen. Methods to treat FAS have been established, such as speech therapy, medication combinations, and other forms of counseling. While it's recognized as a real condition, there's little information about what it actually affects and why it came to be in the first place. Furthermore, brain scans have yet to prove in detail how the human brain is altered in such a way. Additionally, treatment is only beneficial to a small portion of patients, and others are forced to live the rest of their lives speaking in an unfamiliar accent. Sadly, many victims of FAS become targets of ridicule and disbelief even in the medical field. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. If you loved it, maybe consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you in the next video.